All right, welcome everyone. My name is K. Michael Russell. I am a comic book colorist, digital artist. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So you guys are looking at this. Some of you guys are going, "What is he got? What does he have on the screen right now?" So when I was a kid, I don't know if this is still a thing, but there were these kits you could buy, and they were called paint by numbers kits. Okay, and it's exactly what it sounds like. You would get a set of watercolors. I think they were watercolors. um, I would have been like young. This would have been in like the early '80s, to mid, yeah, not early, mid to late '80s, early '90s maybe. And you would literally just, okay, five goes here, four goes here, and I don't remember playing around with these very much, but I remember seeing a handful of them, and I guess it was something my parents thought that I would enjoy, and I did, but I don't know that you learned much from it in the way of actual, uh, art education as far as that goes. And I wanted to use it as an example, though, of how in comics these days and in most art that you don't want to generally paint by the numbers, where every time that you see XYZ thing in the book, it's always number five, or it's always, sorry, my wife's sneezing back there. But you don't want to see that every single time it pops up in every single panel. Okay, I mean there are exceptions possibly, but I'll show you guys some comic examples and you'll see what I mean. Oh, I did find this is a finished paint by numbers example. So yeah, they're not groundbreaking or anything, but they were cool when I was a kid. And I found some awesome examples uh, of not doing this, which is a good thing. And I think this is drawn by Max Dunbar and colored by Tamra Bonvillain, who is an excellent colorist and a friend of mine. And I want you to notice how she's using light and shadow to draw your attention to only certain characters in certain panels. And in some cases, pushing some into not the background, but away from your focus, basically. So, like for example, in this first panel, pretty much everyone's lit about the same. Okay, getting back way off in the distance, of course, these people don't have quite as many highlights because as you go into the distance, things tend to get less, less saturated, less contrast, all that kind of stuff. But look at the change from. I'm trying to get this size a little bit better. That was weird. Okay, so but look at the difference in, for example, her. There we go. Her head there and her head here, and the rest of her body. So here she's in the light, okay? But here she's not, okay? These characters are talking, and instead of lighting her the same way, she pulled the lighting back. Okay, there's still some rendering there, but it's much simpler because she's trying to get you to look past her to where the action is, okay? And that's where the most contrast is. So here, less contrast, here, more contrast. Okay, so you're just getting you to look right past it to where that action's happening. This is the sort of thing that really separates uh, really raw beginner rookie colorists from someone that has got some storytelling chops. You know what I mean? So if you're working on your portfolio and notice not doing this, you might want to find some places where it kind of makes sense. I noticed it too in these couple of panels here. This character is the smallest thing in these two panels. Okay, visually he's just not the biggest, but he commands more attention because again you're looking kind of past this guy to where that contrast where the values are. And this is honestly less of a color thing than it is just a value and contrast thing. Because you've got the brightest values, you've got the most contrast there, whereas the lighting here, there's less contrast. So your eye immediately is going to look past it, typically as it's flowing around the page. So you get this really strong flow that happens because you're going from this panel across here down to this guy over here, and there's really no question about there's nothing whoops, there's nothing crazy bright, out here in this corner. There's nothing distracting up here at the top. You know, someone that didn't know any better might decide to put a sun up here in the tree or something. You know, there's not, those sort of distractions aren't happening from page to page and panel to panel. But even within this same page, you can see that we're seeing those changes from even one panel to the very next panel. So don't feel that, you know, okay, I use this color here, so I've got to go in now in this panel and do the same thing everywhere else, because it doesn't really work that way. Not every time, anyway. This is another just simple. It's that's 3 panels, but it's really just these 2 I wanted to show you. Same thing here with Spider-Man. This is David Curiel on colors. Is this Stegman? This looks like Ryan Stegman on art. I didn't check. I should have. But you see how we've got, you know, Spider-Man red up here in this panel in the top, but you're not seeing that red as strong. I mean, it's really, really desaturated, almost a purple in this panel, because, you know, he's a big part of this panel, but look who's yelling. It's the little guy in the back, okay? No offense to Wolverine calling him little. I'm sure he's sensitive to that. But, you know, he's the smallest thing in the panel, but he's commanding a lot of attention. One, because he's yelling, and the letterer is, you know, is pointing the balloons at him, and that helps. But if Spider-Man would have been, you know, Spider-Man candy apple red in this panel, would it have not worked? I don't know that I would say it wouldn't have worked, but I don't think it would have worked as well as it works with, you know, with that being toned down considerably. And this is another cover by Curiel, and, you know, Star-Lord here is definitely the focal point. You know, he's the brightest thing on the page. He's the most saturated thing on the page, and you have all the characters looking at him, so that helps. But when this is on the shelf, you know, even from, you know, from a few feet away, you would be able to quickly see, you know, there's my focal point, which is always something I try to shoot for. What if this page was sitting on the shelf? Can I still make out what's going on from 10 feet away? You know, or can I at least make out foreground and background? And you could easily change this up just by shifting where that vibrance is, you know, on this cover. So let's say this wasn't the Legendary Star-Lord's comic. This was, I don't even know these people, but whoever this band of bad guys is, let's say it's their book, okay, and they're the focus of this particular book. Then we could go in here, we could brighten them up, darken him a little bit, and all of a sudden, you know, this page has a very different tone. You know, Star-Lord's in shadows. I kind of forgot to put the sewer thing there in shadows, but all of a sudden everyone else is bright on the page. Everyone else is more saturated. So we quickly, completely changed the focus of this. And this goes back into the whole coloring by numbers thing. If I had stuck to my exact local color for each one of these guys, you know, I wouldn't have any focus on this page. It would just, here's everyone, you know, hope the line art's good enough, because the colors aren't going to help if you do it that way. So what else do we got? So, like, this is a page, this was drawn by Sean Gordon Murphy and colored by Matt Hollingsworth, who they're an amazing combo. You know, for example, there's a lot of stuff going on here making this big splash page work. One is you've got the difference of the cool warm with the background and the foreground. So if you look in the background, very little in the way of, you know, anything with any kind of warmth. Okay, and all of this is, these are cool greens and teals and grays and yellows, and even these yellows, you know, are relatively cooled down yellows. But, you know, get this big orange and brown bite right in the middle of the page that, other than being in the middle of the page helping, you know, it's standing out against all that cool stuff. And one of the things I know a lot of beginners struggle with is what color to do backgrounds. For whatever reason, a lot of people want to get cute with background colors sometimes and just go really crazy and pick something out of the ordinary. You know, what he would have done here, like, let's say that if I didn't know any better and I go into this, let me see if I can color. Can I color pick this? Probably not. I'm going to try anyway. So I did a pretty good job. I'm trying to get just the background. So what I did there is I increased the tolerance on the magic wand to about 20. And let's say that let's say that I'm thinking color by numbers here again. I'm just going to make it the same color as it is in these other panels. You know, I've already weakened this layout, this 2-page layout, because this panel now kind of gets lost down there. Okay, so what Matt did was he brightened it up. You know, that's he's made a storytelling decision there to brighten that panel so that it stands out. He didn't go grab a crazy color from that doesn't fit anywhere else on the page. He picked some colors that were already in the background, just brighten them up. And immediately, especially when you've got a small panel like that, you want to be able to make those decisions to make those panels show up, because otherwise, if the colors are all too similar, then you end up with a big just mass, and it's not going to read very well. Now, and the reason that he can go darker again on these lower panels is look at what they're surrounded by. They're surrounded by lighter and slightly warmer colors. They're kind of just grayed out yellows. But this blue kind of matches the blue that's happening up here. So again, he's not just grabbing a random color; he's grabbing something from that palette he's created, and that's very important. And a different lesson here, and again, this goes back into, the sky doesn't have to be blue, the trees don't have to be green, when it fits the story. So these are pages from 7 to Eternity, and I didn't get the artist name on this. I should know this, but it's again Matt Hollingsworth on colors. These are dense pages, okay? Like, this guy has a lot of detail in his line art, and Matt's got a lot of detail in his rendering, where it matters on the foreground characters. But look at what he's done in the background. If he had gone in and picked these same greens and these same bright blues and started throwing them all around in the background, then, that panel becomes an unreadable mess, okay? Because if it wasn't for that it's not completely flat, but he's got this kind of red wash that's over all this stuff in the back, because he's trying to simplify what your eye can focus on, and he carries that through this scene all the way through this entire scene here. And I think even, same thing here. He's keeping that kind of red fill kind of washing everything in the background, and then he's keeping those bright greens and yellows and oranges and all that stuff in the foreground, so that he gives you something to separate those things. Now, if in the next scene they travel into that background, does he have to keep it red again? He might not. That may become the greens and the blues and the yellows and all those things are in the front, and even further down is still red. So when I open this up talking about coloring by numbers, you don't have to stick to your formula. I mean, you do want your colors to be consistent. That is important. So if you're basically my main point is be sure your pages read, and you don't have to use the same color for the same thing on every single page. This is a very, very common problem for new colorists, and hopefully this video will help explain why that's such a big issue. So thanks for watching. If you want more detailed kind of walkthrough step-by-step tutorials, be sure to check the links in the description. I've got all my coloring courses and art courses down there, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of this stuff. So I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.